Wales, making her first public appearance of the year, taking part in the annual Trooping the Colour parade. We'll have more throughout the morning. OK, the US Vice President will be among attendees at a summit this weekend, planning first steps towards peace in Ukraine. Not in attendance, though, both Russia and China. So how much progress are we likely to see at the event in Switzerland? Well, it takes place near Lucerne. It comes just a day after President Zelensky met with world leaders at the G7 in southern Italy, where a $50 billion loan to Kyiv was agreed. But no end in the sight to the war. Ukrainian soldiers have been speaking of the mental health toll from fighting on the front lines, and they've spoken to our security and defence editor, Deborah Haynes.
Все те, що робить агресор, те, як він намагається нас знищити, те, як гибнуть побратими, це дуже сильно впливає на емоційний стан.
Maxim is among a growing number of Ukrainian troops suffering the mental scars of war.
В голові куча думок про те, що було, тому я від цього не мог трохи відійти.
Just back from the front line, he receives support at a makeshift centre for psychological trauma.
В нашій ситуації не завжди є можливість побачити родину. І коли ти йдеш на завдання, то є різні ситуації, що ти можеш не повернути. Боєць, який розбитий зсередини, не може виконувати якісно ці завдання і тим самим може зробити ще трохи шкоди.
Treating the physical injuries of Russia's invasion is a vital task. But some Ukrainian commanders are also trying to respond to their soldiers' more hidden wounds, which can be just as damaging if untreated. Ilya is a psychologist who works at this support hub. Set up in eastern Ukraine by 41st Brigade. Some 10 soldiers at a time can stay here for a few days for assessments.
What is the danger if you don't tackle these hidden wounds?
Якщо не займатися, то можемо, якщо це в плані військовослужбовця, то можемо втратити військовослужбовця і у нього почнуться проблеми помімо себе, він буде наносити шкоду іншим.
But with a shortage of troops on the front line, only those displaying the most serious mental injuries are sent away for further help. The rest must return to the fight. Deborah Haynes, Sky News.
OK, on to the day's other news now. Millwall have announced the sudden death of their #1 goalkeeper, Matthias Sarkic. At the age of 26, Sarkic was born in Grimsby and played for several English clubs during his career. He died while on international duty for Montenegro. 28 people have had to be rescued from an amusement park ride in Oregon after a fault left them dangling upside down for around half an hour. Emergency services managed to bring down the ride manually and say no one was hurt. Well, there was major disappointment last night for Scotland fans as their side lost 5-1 to host Germany in the opening game of the Euros. Our sport correspondent Rob Harris was in Munich and sent this report.
Now, how long will their party last in Germany? The Tartan army more in tune than their team.
Scotland no party!
The Euros opening with a 5-1 thumping by Germany. The hosts just too good for them. In front after 10 minutes through Florian Wirtz. A struggle for the Scots made even tougher after this from Jamal Musiala. So much to be frustrated about. And more after this tackle. Ryan Portier sent off. And Kai Havertz converting from the spot. Scotland 3 down at half-time. And Nicholas Fulkrug inflicted more damage after the break. Even Scotland's only goal came from a German. Scott McKenna's header deflected in by Antonio Rudiger. And Emre Can had the final say, with Germany's 5th in stoppage time.
I feel as though we've let ourselves down. We're better than that. This was always going to be a tough night for us to get something. We need 4 points from the next 2 games, and that's what we focus on.
Got to move on to the next one, eh?
Still some hope?
Yeah, you've got to keep the hope, don't you?
The message to fans, keep the faith.
We've got 2 more games, we can still qualify, we can get 4 points. There's the eternal optimism, right? We go again. Absolutely gutted. Very, very poor performance. Came here with a bit of hope, a bit of expectation, but that was very, very poor.
And that was an aberration. The 2 early goals, game plan didn't work. You get a penalty and a red card. How are you going to manage the game after that? Very, very difficult.
This was a brutal reality check for Scotland. The golfing quality exposed on a nightmare start for the Tartan Army. But for Germany, a dream opening for their home tournament. This was their night.
Völlig losgelöst von der Erde.
Germany delirious, Scotland deficient. Rob Harris, Sky News, Munich.
This is Sky News Today. Coming up, an underreported battleground. We look at whether Sikh voters could swing seats in the upcoming general election. And the Princess of Wales returns to public engagements for the first time since her cancer diagnosis, with an appearance at Trooping the Colour.
That has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides, and it's moving this way.
Only about half a mile from the Turkish coast, and it's evident that the boat seriously overcrowded. This is one of the most severe viruses in the world. I'm Alex Crawford, and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul.
This is going to be the biggest party Tripoli has ever seen.
That's it. It got us then. There's a lot of action going on, a lot of hits coming in still. We aim to be the best and the most trusted place in news.
Clearly not had very much to eat at all. A lot of them extremely thin and very frail. Look at her arms. I can put my entire hand round.
This is the cocktail of drugs which the doctors at this hospital have been giving their coronavirus patients. Made for people who want clarity in an uncertain world.
Mother Nature can be vicious, absolutely savage.
The world's largest falls now down to a trickle in places.
I can't imagine how much plastic is lying at the bottom of this huge lake. Whoa!
Close and personal with her, aren't they?
This is what makes the job so fantastic.
Shall we back into the general election now? Now, Home editor Jason Farrell is travelling across Britain with a parliamentary bench, offering voters the chance to take a seat and tell us what's important to them. We started in Cornwall, where our bench across Britain made its first stop, then to a cheese rolling event in Gloucestershire. Up next, he arrived at a school in Bedfordshire, in Luton, and now he's been to a kabaddi sporting event in Southall and a Gurdwara in Gravesham to speak to the Sikh community about the issues they care about in the general election.
Described as Sikh sumo wrestling, the ancient game of kabaddi originated as a military training exercise on how to take captives and win territory. Now a fixture in the UK Punjabi calendar. And Sikh votes are a battleground in this election. Spectators here come from constituencies across the country.
you tend to get a lot of injuries.
Their vote matters in numerous areas. In Southall, known as the Little Punjab, Sikhs make up 30% of the population. So we've brought our parliamentary bench here to test the mood.
So the current cost of living, as we all know, is through the roof. And it's becoming extremely difficult to live and sustain within this environment. Evident that with the amount of homeless on streets.
I've been here a long time now, but I've never seen nothing change. It's gone up and up. Every government come in, they promise a lot of things. We do this, we do that, we do this, but nothing happens again.
PM Rishi Sunak, a Hindu, has Punjabi origins, but is he getting their vote?
Well, I mean, I think he was a better chancellor than he was a prime minister. I think the position the party finds itself generally, that really hasn't helped his cause.
The athletes here represent Sikh communities across the UK. This team is from Gravesend in Kent.
Yeah, Gravesend.
In a target seat for Labour, Gravesham. Home to the largest Gurdwara in the UK.
The Sikh community can be quiet influencers in elections. We don't hear from them much, but they are concentrated in certain areas, and they can tip the balance in places like here, Gravesham, where they make up 8% of the population.
Surveys we've done suggest 85% of Sikhs actually come out and vote. There are probably 1 million Sikh voters. We have towns and cities where there are 25,000 Sikhs. And therefore, the Sikh vote really matters on the 4th of July.
So how can politicians appeal to these worshippers? Many said they want a public inquiry into British government involvement in events leading up to the infamous Sikh massacre in India in 1984. And to hear more from politicians about protecting their communities.
Yeah, Islamophobia, Semitism is widely recognised for specific hate crime. However, nothing exists for the Sikhs. But because of our dress, we can become targets of hate crime exactly the same manner as Muslims do.
Because at the end of the day, I feel like we represent the nation very well. You know, we hold its core values, and as a community, we are very tight-knit and close-knitted.
They pride themselves on being humble, shrewd, community-minded, and incredibly polite.
I'm so sorry about that. I'm so sorry.
And in places, their vote can carry a seat.
Looks very stylish, Jason.
Jason Farrell, Sky News.
OK, let's take a look at the weather. Well, the weekend weather will be unsettled thanks to a cool area of low pressure sitting over northern parts of the country, and this will give a rotating feed of showers or longer spells of rain. There will be sunshine and showers for most through the day, although a swathe of cloud through central areas will bring some more persistent wet weather. And the north and south will be breezy, pushing showers through quite rapidly, whilst lighter winds inland will cause showers to be moving slowly. Some of the showers will be heavy, with the odd rumble of thunder. Between the showers, there'll be good sunny spells with temperatures a degree or so up on recent values. That said, we're still looking at a range from 14 to 19 Celsius for most. It'll be drier inland overnight, but some more persistent rain will spread into northern Scotland. Now, temperatures will hold in double figures in towns and cities, but it will become chilly in the rural areas where skies clear for any length of time. Sunday will be a similar day, although there'll be fewer showers overall. You're watching Sky News. Coming up, the Princess of Wales returns to public engagements for the first time since her cancer diagnosis, arriving at Buckingham Palace for Trooping the Colour. OK, just want to bring you some sad breaking news this morning. Arsenal have tweeted, "We're devastated to learn that our former striker Kevin Campbell has died after a short illness." He was 54 years old. Kevin was adored, they say, by everyone at the club. So that breaking news there, that former Arsenal and Everton striker Kevin Campbell has passed away. OK, let's go live now, and our top story, because the Princess of Wales is due to take part in her first public appearance since beginning treatment for cancer. She'll be joined by members of the royal family. But let's go live now to our royal commentator, Alistair Bruce.
And what a great way to start, by seeing the regimental mascot of the Irish Guards, the dog, the Irish Wolfhound Seamus, coming on to Horse Guards. We spoke a little earlier in the week to the dog handler, and he had much to say about preparing his beloved Seamus for the parade, and his name is drummer Ashley Dean.
Preparing all the kit, I will start off by giving him a good brush down. Then he'll go on to putting his tunic on, which he naturally just puts on now to himself. And then it'll be going down to Brasso and cleaning his collar and make sure it's nice and polished, just like all of the kit that all the rest of us wear. The collar is from 1985, and it has all the regimental mascots since 1985 written on the collar. The one that predates that, I believe, is in the Guards Museum next to Wellington Barracks.
And there have been a large number of wonderful Irish Wolfhounds who have represented the Irish Guards over the years. They were formed in the year 1900 on the 1st of April. And we can see the famous blue plume of the Irish Guards on their band there as they come on to Horse Guards. This is their day. The Irish Guards will be trooping the colour of number 9 Company, which represents the traditions and history of the 2nd Battalion Irish Guards. And meanwhile, the Guardsmen who will be playing their part in the parade today are taking their positions to form an L shape on this great parade square. It will be a day of music, a day of ceremonial, and principally a chance for the nation through the Household Division to wish the King a very happy official birthday. It's the sort of national day for the United Kingdom, and it is always held on a Saturday to reduce the impact on traffic. But today is quite a gloomy day in London. It's been raining quite hard already, and the weather doesn't look good for the period of our parade. But I remember commentating one year when literally at the corner where our camera now is, it was deep water pretty much for the soldiers to march through. So they're ready for whatever takes place, and for them, this is the culmination to many months of training as the band of the Irish Guards, with others, come to a halt, forming the mass bands of the Household Division. And we're looking across to Horse Guards building there, with the canopies outside the balcony, where later on members of the royal family, who will not be either in the carriages on parade or on horseback, will witness what takes place in this spectacle of British pageantry. And for the senior drum major today, Warrant Officer Second Class Gareth Chambers of the Irish Guards, just going to the rear of the parade now after bringing the bands on with the other drum majors as reorganisation takes place. And the pipes and drums of the 1st Battalion Irish Guards all realigning themselves for the ceremonial that will take place later on when the King has arrived. Meanwhile, the 6 Guards are about to be formed into an L shape, which will be the principal formation for the parade today. Closest to us, we can see in the middle of the line of number 9 Company Irish Guards, the white sash across the chest of the ensign who will be carrying the colour that's to be trooped today. The ensign today is Lieutenant Harry Winterbottom. He has been selected to play his part and to represent the regiment. But various different colour points who mark out the parade, one from the Welsh Guards there. And it will be to that point that the escort for the colour will be lining up very shortly. All of it beautifully arranged and rehearsed over, as I say, the last few months. You can already see the waters gathering as the words of command echo out over this large parade square. It was really the parade square that the tilts used to take place in the tournaments in the days when Whitehall Palace was the home of the Tudor monarchy. So it has seen ceremonial going back for many centuries. The stands are packed, and under a very full canopy of those trees, you can see the flags of many of the Commonwealth countries and the realms of which the King is head of state. And the Guards Memorial at the centre, which was put up after the First World War with the 5 bronze statues representing the 5 Foot Guards regiments, the Grenadiers, the Coldstream, the Scots, the Irish and the Welsh. And it's still covered in marks from the destruction caused during the Blitz of the Second World War, the end of which we will mark the 80th anniversary next year. Field Officer and Brigade waiting, taking command of his parade. And having given them the quick march, they will now form that L shape. Meanwhile, at Buckingham Palace, the preparations are going ahead for the first carriage procession. And we can see through the centre arch to the carriage that Her Royal Highness the Princess of Wales is about to leave in that carriage procession with her children. And she will be making her way with other members of the royal family who will follow in other carriages, and they'll make their way up the Mall and to the parade itself. Her Royal Highness the Princess of Wales, appearing in public today. She is Colonel, Irish Guards. It is her regiment who will be trooping their colour before His Majesty the King to mark his official birthday later today. Everything's timed to perfection, so once all members of the royal family are prepared and the Comptroller of the Lord Chamberlain's office, Lieutenant Colonel Mike Vernon, is content, he and the Crown Equerry, Colonel Toby Brown, will give the signal for the primary procession of members of the royal family to make their way to Horse Guards. It's a short distance up the Mall, turning right on Horse Guards Approach Road, and then into Horse Guards itself. Back at Horse Guards, the parade is preparing for that arrival. and with the King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery under the canopy of trees just behind the parade ground there. The 6 guards formed by the Guards regiments of the Household Division, as I say, in front of the Guards Memorial, marked by the Blitz. And at the end of the Second World War, Churchill refused attempts to repair war memorials, to remind everyone how close this democracy came to being defeated. Commanding officer and officers of the King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery, as the royal procession leaves Buckingham Palace. The glass coach will take the Princess of Wales. And in the first barouche will be the Duchess of Edinburgh. Her husband, the Duke of Edinburgh, has recently become Colonel Scots Guards. He will be riding behind the King. And with her is Lady Louise Mountbatten-Windsor, her daughter, and the Duke of Kent, who, until this year, had been Colonel Scots Guards. And they're given a royal salute.
See them anyway.
And in the second barouche, the Duke and Duchess of Gloucester and Vice Admiral Sir Tim Lawrence, whose wife, the Princess Royal, is Colonel of the Blues and Royals, and she'll be riding also behind the King. They pass around the Queen Victoria Memorial and then up the Mall. And because of the weather, the barouches are covered, which does make it very difficult for us all to see. And at the moment, we now wait for the glass coach and the Princess of Wales and her family, who will follow shortly. Meanwhile, back at Horse Guards Parade, where the ceremonial will take place, the field officer in brigade waiting, who will be commanding the whole of this parade today, Lieutenant Colonel James Colby, who's the commanding officer of the London Central Garrison. He has opened up number 3 guard, formed by F Company of the Scots Guards, so that the carriages we've just seen leaving Buckingham Palace can pass through freely to Horse Guards Arch. The downpour earlier has led to the large puddles everywhere, but at least there won't be any dust, which can make it quite an environment for the soldiers marching through it, and for the horses too. So when the members of the royal family arrive, we will then see the King leave Buckingham Palace and come with his 4 divisions of Sovereign's escort provided by the Household Cavalry, and he will arrive at Horse Guards at precisely 11 o'clock. He will then receive a royal salute from the whole parade, and then he will inspect the guards, looking into the eyes of each of these guardsmen here waiting. And we return to Buckingham Palace, where the King's procession is about to leave. And we can see the balcony above the central arch, which is where later on His Majesty the King will appear with members of the royal family. and His Majesty the King with the Queen in the Scottish state coach will receive a royal salute as he comes for the start of his official birthday. His Majesty the King in the uniform of Colonel-in-Chief of the Irish Guards, who will be trooping their colour later. And behind him, the Royal Colonels, Princess Royal, the Duke of Edinburgh, and the Prince of Wales. Prince of Wales is Colonel of the Welsh Guards, the Duke of Edinburgh of the Scots Guards, and the Princess Royal, Colonel of the Blues and Royals. And the Princess of Wales, with her children. And it's been a long time since we've had the chance to see the Princess of Wales taking part in royal ceremonial, followed by the standard of the lifeguards and other senior officers as the King and Queen passed round by and for the Princess of Wales, so much she has been dealing with for the first part of this year, and doubtless for her children too, but a good day out for them now. The decision to take the covered coaches was made today because of the weather. The intention had been for open landau's. The weather really isn't kind today, and it's likely to deteriorate during the parade we will witness. So for the Princess of Wales, who is Colonel, Irish Guards, she sent wonderful messages last week when she couldn't attend the Colonel's review, and encouraged them and told the regiment how proud she was of all that they do and have done in preparing for the King's official birthday. And back at Horse Guards Parade, waiting for the arrival of the first royal procession. The two barouches that we saw leaving, with the first containing the Duchess of Edinburgh and the second with the Duke and Duchess of Gloucester, shortly arriving here. And they will come through the number 3 guard and receive a royal salute. And they're passing by flags from the Commonwealth and the realms of which the King is head of state. The Duchess of Edinburgh there, bowing her head to the unfurled colour of the number 9 company, the Irish Guards, which waits on the far side of the parade ground and will be trooped later on. The colour that will be trooped was presented to number 9 company by the King on Monday at Windsor. It carries a quasi, almost spiritual significance for the regiment. It incorporates the whole history of a regiment and those who have served in it over the years, back, of course, as we remember, back to D-Day and the advance through Normandy 80 years ago. All those who served and lost their lives are recalled. As the Field Officer Brigade waiting will now return the formation of the L, bringing F Company, the number 3 Guard, back into line in time for the King's arrival later on. But the King is making his way very slowly with the household cavalry up the Mall. And will join us from the left-hand side of this picture in a short time. You can see the great Admiralty building in the background there. That was where the Royal Navy was commanded and organised throughout the First and Second World War. And to the left, the place where much of that planning took place, now covered in ivy, a location for all the training and preparation of battle in those 2 world wars. So the L shape is returned, and the Field Officer and Brigade waiting on his white horse today. He will take his position ready to give the royal salute when the King arrives. Back on the Mall. And the Director of Music leading the band of the Household Cavalry, Major Craig Bywater, within their state dress. That's the gold state coats of the Household Cavalry Mounted Band. And they lead the Sovereign's escort, first 2 divisions. And they will provide music later on for the advance to Horse Guards. And a chance for all those who've gathered here down the Mall. There's often quite a large crowd. There is obviously a demonstration today too from Republic, and they have taken their place and are making their views felt. And leading the King's procession is the Brigade Major. The Brigade Major, Lieutenant Colonel James Shaw, who had much to do with the planning of the coronation procession too, and he leads the Household Cavalry Mounted Band there. The 2 sets of drums on the 2 drum horses, who are called Juno and Apollo. One set of drums presented by King George III and the others by King William IV. They're extremely heavy, and the horses are great characters. They've got names in the stable. Juno's known as Willow Rose, and Apollo, just quite simply, as Ed. And all the way down the Mall, the Union flag is fluttering gently as a little bit of sunshine might just be finding its way through the clouds. The King and Queen are being led by the Household Cavalry Band, playing Carolean Jubilate. It's music that gives a sense of the approach of the King, and we have the Princess of Wales following along behind. And just to let you all know, we're borrowing some of these cameras, so we're not always in control of what they're showing. We just see the Major General commanding Household Division there with his plumed cocked hat as the 3rd Division of the Sovereign's escort formed by the Blues Royals and also the 4th Squadron of the Sovereign's bodyguard. And meanwhile, at Horse Guards, we see the arrival of the King's procession, led, as I say, by a slight drama as they just sort themselves out there underneath the trees. They have to reverse in. They've had a small problem there. Sometimes horses have their own character and act as they choose. The Life Guards coming in, forming the 1st Squadron of the Sovereign's escort. And they will take their position underneath the canopy of trees beside the Guards Memorial. And after the 2nd escort, Sovereign's escort from the Life Guards, we'll have the King's carriage, the Scottish state coach, which will lead him to the right of our picture and to Horse Guards Arch itself, where he will take the first salute of his official birthday parade. As you see, all the guests who are gathered in the stands have stood for the arrival of the King, Colonel-in-Chief of the Irish Guards. Set upon the top of the Scottish state coach is a representation of the Crown of Scots, which was presented to the King last year in the High Kirk of St Giles when he came to Scotland after his coronation and was presented with the crown that had been placed upon the coffin of his mother, Elizabeth II, when she lay at rest, and which was made in 1540 and was first used at a coronation in 1542 for the coronation of Mary, Queen of Scots. And the Princess of Wales, following with her children. Much for young eyes to look at and take in. And the intent to get the King to Horse Guards Arch. And the first salute to His Majesty the King as he arrives, followed by his brother, sister and son, as he now goes to inspect his guardsmen. And the chance for Princess of Wales and her children to alight. Saluted by the Garrison Sergeant Major there. She will now go up the stairs to the left-hand side of the arch and into the Major General's office, which used to be where the Duke of Wellington used to witness this parade. And there she will watch with other members of the royal family as the King now looks into the eyes of the escort for the colour, formed by number 9 Company, the Irish Guards. For the Queen too, as Colonel Grenadier Guards, the number 2 Guard is formed by Nijmegen Company of the Grenadier Guards. And the slow inspection of the line, called of silk and gold, refers to the colours that the King presented to number 9 Company of the Irish Guards. It contains 2 melodies. The first, a lilting song which imagines the silken fabric of the colour, known as Summer Breeze. And the second, called O Caithin, which refers to the golden thread that lists the battle honours, as there it is, and the King gives his respect. And for the quick inspection of the line, Welcome to Ireland, an arrangement by Phil Shannon. All the music today will take us to the north, south, east and west of Ireland. And as the King looks at the Sovereign's escort formed by the household cavalry regiments, he can probably spot Tennyson, which was one of the horses that was badly injured after an incident in a London road recently. Today it's ridden by Corporal of Horse Harvey, who is the division's most experienced rider. The King will now return to Horse Guards Arch and there witness the slow and quick troop of the massed bands of the Household Division. First, he gets a chance to look at those musicians as he passes by them on the way. And we can see the King in the carriage with the Queen, followed by the Royal Colonels and the other colonels and the Major General commanding the Household Division, now approaching Horse Guards Arch. And the King's carriage will come to a halt, and His Majesty and the Queen will alight and take their position in the saluting base to watch the rest of the parade. So the King will sit on the right, as is custom, and the Queen to his left. And once they take their position, the word of command to troop will be given, and the slow troop will begin with the famous tune Les Huguenots, which has been played regularly at the parade since 1936 and has been played on a number of occasions right back to 1869.
Guys,
enjoying the music, and who could fail to as this wonderful scene unfolds. The quick troop will be the tune Ballyragget, which is the name of a tank that was driven by Lieutenant Colonel John Gorman, or commanded by him, and he drove straight at a German Tiger tank and disabled it. And his tank was called Ballyragget. So we recall 80 years ago and enjoy a great Irish Guard story. And the pipe major of the Irish Guards at the back there, he's sporting a brand new pipe banner, which has been made for the Princess of Wales, their new colonel. On this side, you see the Star of St. Patrick, encircled by a wreath of shamrock. And on the other side is her coat of arms, impaled beside those of Prince William, those of the Middleton family. And when he turns, you'll get a good chance to see it later on. And we go straight into the drummer's call given today by drummer David McDowell from Lisbon in Northern Ireland, giving the instruction to the soldiers of number 9 Company, Irish Guards, who are currently the escort for the colour for the commander of the guard, to hand over to the subaltern, Lieutenant Monty Badger, as the drummer returns after giving his drummer's call. And we'll now see the escort for the colour come forward to collect the colour. And it's a chance for Lieutenant Harry Winterbottom to put into effect those duties that he must get right when he arrives in front of the colour itself. And here is the colour waiting. And it's carried today by Colour Sergeant Chris Enright. To his right is Guardsman James Lee. And to his left is Guardsman Vertena Muik. And they await the arrival of the escort for the colour. And they'll come straight forward from where they're in the line. And you'll watch a spin wheel from the mass bands, who appear to be in the way because they will manage to get themselves out of the way just in time for the escort for the colour to come and collect the colour. And we can see the escort for the colour now positioning itself and lining up, looking straight across the band. And the band will move away just in time. Earlier this week, I spoke to Lieutenant Harry Winterbottom about what he had to get right at this time. And he had his views. It's a very difficult moment for him because the Regimental Sergeant Major will come forward from the rear of the escort for the colour and go to collect it and hand it to the ensign. So here he is, Lieutenant Harry Winterbottom.
So that moment when I'm collecting the colour from the Regimental Sergeant Major, I'm very conscious that all eyes are on me. At that point, I'll salute the colour. The Regimental Sergeant Major then will hand the colour over to me as the ensign, and from that moment forwards, as the ensign, I'm in charge of that colour, and then we'll troop it through the ranks of the Guards, demonstrating to them this is the Irish Guards colour, and that goes back to history where we troop the colour as a way of marking out in battle that is the rallying point.
And there is the colour presented to Number 9 Company by the King on Monday this week. It has his royal crown above the Star of the Order of St. Patrick. The Star of the Order of St. Patrick, which was created in 1783. And you will see at the back of the escort for the colour, the Regimental Sergeant Major. At the rear of the escort for the colour. He will now march forward, having drawn his sword. And we can see him just moving from right to left as he'll come round and he'll pick up the ensign as he passes and take him forward to collect the colour. So the escort for the colour is about to become the escort to the colour and have the greatest honour for the Irish Guards to then troop their colour through the other Guards and then to take it and march past the King. Regimental Sergeant Major takes hold of the colour. Colour Sergeant puts his SA-80 rifle onto his shoulder. And now is the moment that Harry Winterbottom was talking about. He has to salute, and then he has to find the opening of his scabbard with the point of his sword and drive it away. And when he takes possession of the colour, he'll turn, present it to the escort to the colour, who will give a royal salute. King saluting with other members of the royal family at this key moment as the colour that he presented himself has been taken by the escort to the colour. And they will now position themselves in order to troop it through the other Guards here, the other 5 Guards. And the purpose of this tells us something about what a colour is. It was an emblem, and in the chaos of battle, for the soldiers who were fighting, they always knew to gather themselves back or around and protect the colour that would have carried the symbols of their commander or whoever it was they were loyal to. And that colour needed to be identified and recognised. And every night it would be taken and lodged safely. And so it was necessary that all the troops knew where it was, what needed to be protected. And it used to carry different badges from heraldry of the various commanders in history. And sometimes they didn't have heraldry, so they just had two different coloured pieces of cloth. Hence the name colours emerged. But as they march into position to troop the colour through the lines, let's enjoy the music. Now presenting arms as the colour passes through. And the mass bands with the different buttons and plumes of the different regiments of the Guards Division. You can see the white and green plumes of the Welsh Guards. But principal today, when we get the chance, is to see the blue plume of the Irish Guards, whose day this is. And there are the banners of the Irish Guards. At the far end, the brand new pipe banner of the Princess of Wales. Meanwhile, watching this event, the Princess of Wales with her son. There's a very good view from up there. They build a small platform with some chairs, so the Princess is sat on one of those chairs and able to be very close to young Prince Louis of Wales, looking out at his mum's regiment, trooping their colour through the other guards. It's special for the King to look out onto this parade square as all 5 of his Foot Guards regiments are represented. The escort for the colour by the Irish Guards, number 2 Guard, the Grenadiers, number 3, the Scots Guards, number 4, the Welsh Guards, number 5, also the Welsh Guards, and number 6 Guard, formed by 7 Company, the Coldstream Guards. as the escort to the colour now comes back into line and takes its position. And the subaltern of the guard, Lieutenant Monty Badger, hands over again to Major Richard Trent, who will command from this point through the rest of the parade as they're brought shortly to a halt. The escort to the colour will be advanced. They will now present arms to the colour. So for Lieutenant Harry Winterbottom right there at the centre, he'll now move position with the colour ready for the march past. But because the colour is so precious, they open a route for him straight through the middle, the safest route to take. Takes his position at the rear in order for the preparation now by the Field Officer and Brigade waiting from the horse at the centre of the parade for the march past in slow and quick time. And wonderfully, the sun has arrived here in central London, and it does make the most enormous amount of difference. So they'll now turn and, as it were, march away from us to the sound of the corps of drums, who play The Girl I Left Behind Me. And now perhaps the best view of all, that takes us right back to Waterloo when they all turn round to face us. And they're now ready for the march past in slow time. And at the point we look, they will immediately have to start turning to their left and our right in what's called Chaos Corner, partly because it's one of the most difficult turns to make and everyone is moving in different directions. Let's enjoy it with the music, which is the slow march for the ceremonial parade march today. And this is called Earl Alexander of Tunis, who was one of the colonels of the regiment of the Irish Guards. And we'll enjoy the slow march as they approach His Majesty the King. Watching from the balcony still, the Colonel Irish Guards, Her Royal Highness the Princess of Wales with Prince Louis, explaining every detail to him. There are officers from the Household Division there who can help. They also have others who've taken part in the past, but the family know this one well, and for the Princess of Wales, with her 3 children, they've been also attending regularly. So this is a familiar part of the summer. Perhaps one of the toughest moments coming up now for the ensign. We saw him receive the colour earlier on, and he will be making his way round, being in amongst the escort to the colour right at the front. He'll come to the front, and we'll see him shortly lower the colour in salute to the King. It's probably the most poignant moment for the regiment, and it's something he's been preparing for. So I asked him what it'd be like and why it means so much to the regiment.
Yeah, there's a huge symbolic significance then as we go past with the colour, really carrying the weight of the regiment's history, stretching back to 1900 and all the way to modern conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan. All that weight, I think, will definitely be felt as I carry the colour past His Majesty the King. Really significant moment.
And there is the colour ready to be lowered to the King, being carried by Harry Winterbottom. A big challenge for him. He doesn't want to let the regiment down. He's now at the front of the soldiers that he trains with, works with, and prepares, if necessary, to fight with. And he'll be receiving instructions from the guardsmen behind him to go left a bit, right a bit, so that he's absolutely in the right spot. You can see the St. Patrick's blue plume that he sports in the right-hand side of his bearskin, as do all the guardsmen behind him, and he'll have his buttons in 4s for the Irish Guards, and all of them will be covered in the shamrock that is the ancient symbol of Ireland. And once they're all in position, the word "Right, sir" will be shouted from the soldiers, and forward will go the field officer and brigade waiting. So let's wish him well as he lowers the colour in salute to the King on this King's Birthday Parade on behalf of No. 9 Company, Irish Guards. And to the slow march of the Irish Guards, let Erin remember. The salute is made to the King, and the music will change to Scipio, the slow march for the Grenadier Guards, as the King as Colonel-in-Chief and the Queen as Colonel Grenadier Guards look into the eyes of Nijmegen Company. And the music changes again to the Garb of Old Gaul as the Scots Guards' slow march comes by. And for their new colonel, the Duke of Edinburgh, who is on horseback beside the King, wearing the green sash of the Order of the Thistle, the first time that he has had the chance to do that. It is, of course, the symbol of the Scots Guards, and he stands between the Prince of Wales there and his sister, the Princess Royal. Meanwhile, the Welsh Guards' slow march, the men of Harlech, enjoyed by the Prince of Wales, their colonel. And finally, as Number 7 Company Coldstream Guards go past their slow march. Ceremonial parade march. The wonderful Milanolio for the Coldstream Guards as we now go into the Guards Armoured Division. And as the Guards move on round Horse Guards, the Field Officer and Brigade waiting will shortly move forward and break them into quick time. And that will be a chance for these Guardsmen who've been waiting for some time. We see the Field Officer coming into position so that he can give that word of command shortly at the right time. They can swing their arms and go generally much faster. And that gets the blood moving after waiting for quite a long time. And it is, for the Guardsmen here, a tremendous challenge to both get their kit ready, they get themselves ready, get the drill ready. And you see as each one comes into line and starts marking time, they're working perfectly as a team, knowing the music, knowing the words of command, but listening all the time as they wait for the Field Officer Brigade waiting to break them into quick time. And he'll give the word of command, break into quick time, then count 4 paces, and then quick march, and they'll be away. And so with relief into the quick march, and the sun catches the gleam of the bayonets and the brasses. As the music Arnhem is played, it refers to the city in the Netherlands where one of the great military gambles of World War II occurred. And it's one that will be recalled as part of the great push 80 years ago to liberate Europe from Nazi Germany, in which so many of the regiments we see march past today took part. So the King prepares to receive the salute from his guards as they march past in quick time. And they turn through the final corner in order to line up. But on this occasion, the ensign will not lower the colour, but it will still be saluted by the King and other members of the royal family. And if we look just to the left of that picture, we will see, just to the left of that picture, and just move that camera just slightly to the left, very, very gently. And there is the Duke of Edinburgh wearing the green sash of the Order of the Thistle. And this is special because that has not been done for many years. And it's a reminder that as Colonel of the Scots Guards, the Duke of Edinburgh is also a Knight of the Thistle, Scotland's senior order, which has the green as opposed to the blue sash, which is the Order of the Garter. The King gets ready now to receive the salute in quick time. And the pipes play St. Patrick's Day, the quick march of the Irish Guards. And we have the British Grenadiers for the Grenadier Guards, and then the Scots Guards, Heel and Laddie. And as the Welsh Guards and Coldstream Guards go past, both the Rising of the Lark and Milanolo. And recalling again the 80th anniversary, as we are, of the bid to defeat Hitler at the end of the Second World War, the Guards Armoured Division, music by Major George Wilcox. And the Guards now return to their positions from which they began as the music carries on, and they will reform the L shape that we saw them in earlier on in the parade. And again, It is an echo back to the battlefield manoeuvres of the Napoleonic Wars, where soldiers had to fight wearing these uniforms on open fields, and it is part of the training for the army to be good at both drill and at the business of delivering calculated, precise and legal violence when required by the nation. And it is those twin skills that are tested every year by the military commanders who train these soldiers, but in the Guards Division today, a chance to demonstrate the very best as they reform the L shape in front of the King. And changing arms and stationary once more. And the attention of the parade, once the guards have all been put into position and the officers come to the front of their guards, we see the colour coming round to take position back at the front of the parade, with, in each case, the three officers, the captain, subaltern and escort of each of the guards in position, as Lieutenant Harry Winterbottom holding the colour that he has now taken past the King twice to mark the King's official birthday, is stationary, and they will be put into dress. So let's look very closely at the eyes left. All these guardsmen looking across to get their dressing. That's to make sure that they're in a straight line. And when they're given instruction, they'll all flick their heads forward in a line. Meanwhile, the band is moving out of position to Brian Boru's march to the sound of the pipes. Let's listen to it. Brian Boru was the High King of Ireland at the end of the 10th century. And we can see there the piping banner just waving in the background, the new one that has been brought on parade today for the first time for the Pipe Major, which has the coat of arms of the Colonel, the Princess of Wales, who are also pleased to see watching the parade from the Major General's office. And the parade is now handed over to the mounted band of the Household Cavalry. And we will see the guns of the King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery, which are colours for the Royal Artillery, come forward and will be taken past His Majesty the King, followed by the 4 divisions of the Sovereign's escort of the Household Cavalry. But first of all, the King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery. And it's good to see the guns being taken past the king in salute, the limber at the front and the gun itself at the rear. They're 13-pounder quick-fire field guns and designed with the lessons that were learnt in the Boer War. They're fired and will be fired today in salute at all the gun salutes, and on occasion they have borne the coffins of sovereigns or the late Princess of Wales or other members of the royal family and great military commanders given that honour. And the grading of the horses' colours, the lightest ones are in the subsections A and B, going to the darker guns, darker horses at the rear. They're in E and F subsection, with a salute to the king. And the sound of the horse limber, the chains, the reins, it makes a wonderful sound. We must listen to it closely. The household cavalry now salute to their colonel-in-chief. The soldiers and horses that brought the king here in the 4 squadrons of the Sovereign's escort, led by the Life Guards, who lowered their standard in salute to the king. The regimental walk for the Life Guards and the regimental walk march for the Blues and Royals. The trumpeter will now give the trot. And the director of music, Major Craig Bywater, moves it on to the trot past. And the 2 great horses, Juno and Apollo, doing their part, remaining very stationary as the drums ring out their sound. Well, the weather has changed and those glimmers of sunshine have rather ebbed away as the King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery trot past the King and give their salute. And the guns will now leave Horse Guards and make their way down the Mall in order to fire their guns in salute to mark the King's official birthday from Green Park, just beside Buckingham Palace, at a few minutes to 1 o'clock. So they will now leave the parade as the final salutes are given by the Blues and Royals as they pass the King, their Colonel-in-Chief. And the Princess of Wales still watching as they witness the last parts of this parade when the household cavalry return to their position, ready to escort the King home. Members of the royal family in the Major General's office will go down and return themselves from the rear of this building and up round Admiralty Arch and down the Mall to get back to Buckingham Palace before the King as the drum majors stand ready and all those here prepare to give the final salute to His Majesty the King. And we'll get the chance to see the colour lowered for the last time when Lieutenant Harry Winterbottom will make his salute. But first of all, the Household Cavalry Mounted Band leaves Horse Guards Parade. And when everything is ready after that, it takes a bit of time. The salute will be given by the Field Officer and Brigade Waiting, who will be on horseback at the centre of this parade ground. And he will give his salute to the King. The weather's been very remarkable today. Very strong rain and then moments of wonderful sunshine. But for all of us, this is the weather we've come to know this summer. Household Cavalry coming into position in order to make their salute to the King. And for the Field Officer Brigade Waiting there, Lieutenant Colonel James Colby, whose normal job is to command London Central Garrison, of which number 9 Company Irish Guards is a part. He therefore has the privilege of commanding this parade. He waits till it's all settled, he gets a signal and gives the royal salute. The Field Officer Brigade Waiting will now prepare the Guards to march back to Buckingham Palace. And ever since 1913, when King George V changed the rules to make sure that he led his own soldiers, so that has been maintained. And the King will lead these soldiers, who now have to be put into a different arrangement in order for that march past to take place. Once that process is done, the Colonel will go forward to the King and give a salute and ask the King's permission to return his guards to their duties. Meanwhile, the members of the royal family in the office above the arch will be leaving and will make their way back down to Buckingham Palace down the Mall. For the King, it's a very special day. He has witnessed for the second time as sovereign the King's birthday parade. He stood in for the late Queen for her final birthday parade, the last Queen's birthday parade, but for the King, who has on his shoulder the cipher of his mother, E2R, because he was her aide-de-camp for many years. He carries that forward. But this is the first time we've seen him dressed as Colonel-in-Chief of the Irish Guards. And the reorganisation of His Majesty's Guards so that they can return to their duties. And interestingly, the escort to the colour, who will march down with the colour, will peel off and go into Buckingham Palace, where they then become the new Guard. So they still have a whole changing the Guard ceremony ahead. It's a long day for them. And the drum majors who have led today so well the music of all different parts of the parade where the foot guards are involved. And a very special day for the central drum major, Warrant Officer Second Class Gareth Chambers. As the corps of drums plays again, and the final preparation of the 6 guards ready to march back is put in place. We can see the Household Cavalry moving into position in the Horse Guards approach road so that they can lead ahead of the Guards as they go back to Buckingham Palace. And it will not be until the Garrison Sergeant Major, who will be standing at the corner of Horse Guards approach road, will give his salute. He's quite a figure. He organised the coronation procession, and he's made changes today to give a sense of all the troops making their way up here. But he will be standing at the corner where he can see members of the royal family leaving on their carriages, and also the Household Cavalry getting into position. And when he salutes, the field officer on his white charger will have the signal to go and move forward as the rain just pours down here in Horse Guards. Many of these soldiers will be on parade again on Monday for the service of the Order of the Garter at Windsor Castle, and for them, a weekend in the drawing room. When he reaches position, he will salute the King with his sword and say, "Your Majesty, may I have your permission to march your guards off parade, sir?" And we might just hear it. And with the King's salute, he has permission and will now move back to prepare the march off. And meanwhile, the King's carriage will come forward, and the King and the Queen will get into the Scottish State coach. But the commands have been perfect today. The Field Officer and Brigade Waiting will be very pleased. At the end of the parade, he will meet the King and will go up to the centre room of the balcony, and he will hear what the King thought firsthand. good thing about the Scottish stagecoach is that it has a glass roof, which means that it's possible for everyone to see the King and Queen inside. King's extra equerry from the Coldstream Guards there, holding an umbrella over the Queen. The Crown Equerry will give his signal and the King's carriage will move off. And the summer weather just carries on. And it's been extraordinarily bad weather this year. And with the coming week of Ascot races from Tuesday and with the Garter service on Monday, but for the King and Queen, this is the key date when the King has received the highest accolade from his guards here on Horse Guards. And following the King is the carriage containing the Princess of Wales as Colonel of the Irish Guards. She must be incredibly proud of her regiment today, and still her children fascinated by everything they see, and who wouldn't be, as the rain definitely pouring down here. So following the mass band and in the pouring rain, the King and Queen lead their guards from this parade ground, followed by the Princess Royal, the Prince of Wales, and the Duke of Edinburgh, and the other royal colonels in the form of the Princess of Wales. They gradually lead the guards from this very wet parade ground after what turned out to be better weather than was expected for the majority of that parade. But and the King will be led by the mass bands down to Buckingham Palace, where outside its gates he will receive another march past as each of the guards, numbers 2 to 6, will then salute him as they go back to their duties. And then the rank pass from the household cavalry who have looked after him. And then he will return into the palace while the escort to the colour changes the guard, takes over responsibility for Buckingham Palace and St James's Palace. And the King and the royal family prepare in the centre room, the centre of Buckingham Palace, to appear on the balcony just before 1 o'clock. And at 1 o'clock, if the weather allows it, a fly past from the Royal Air Force. But it's a sea of umbrellas now as the King takes leave of his parade ground here and up Horse Guards Approach Road, past the flags of the nations of which he is head of the Commonwealth, some of which, of course, he is also head of state as King. King of 15 nations, including, of course, the United Kingdom. But it's been special to see the Princess of Wales following on behind the other royal colonels. And the drum majors lead us down with the music of the mass bands. And we have the household cavalry mounted band. Juno and Apollo have probably had enough of the rain and making their way, they know, back to Knightsbridge Barracks, which of course is their home, and every horse loves to be heading home. The gold coats that are worn by the musicians were paid for by the City of London at the restoration of the crown in 1660. And so they're only ever worn when members of the royal family are present, of course, for the King here, but also for the Lord Mayor of London as a thank you for the fact that London paid for the gold coats, the state coats. The King and Queen, well lit inside the Scottish State coach, which has its own electronic lighting. The Duke of Edinburgh, the Princess Royal there. Again, we're on cameras that we don't necessarily control here, so forgive us if the pictures rush, but we've got a good picture there of the Princess of Wales, and I think we'll probably stay with that until it leaves. And witnessed there by the commanding officer of the street liners. He and his adjutant, Lieutenant Colonel Andrew Breach of the Welsh Guards, and his adjutant, Captain Joseph Wilkinson, with their Sergeant Major, Warrant Officer First Class John McAvoy, have been making sure that all is perfect as they salute further members of the royal family as they pass. And the colours that we saw trooped also past drenched spectators. There's the Grenadiers and the Irish Guards, and also you can see the flash of the bayonets that were fixed at the beginning of the parade, and the drill sergeant shouting out left, right, left to keep them all in step. This weather was expected actually earlier on, and it's perhaps good that it came at the end of the parade, not all the way through it. The Mall is uniquely marked with a red tint to the tarmac, and they put a special iron into the making of the tarmac, which gives this sort of red carpet approach to this principal avenue to Buckingham Palace. The Mall was, of course, here before Arlington House was built there and before Buckingham House. In fact, the two houses were built in line with the Mall, and the Mall got its name because people used to play a game called Pell Mell, which they threw silver balls close to one another, rather like if you walk around Paris, they still do today. But you can see at Buckingham Palace the balcony waiting for a rather damp return of the King and Queen, and you can see where they are due to leave the carriage again and go and watch the parade from that position. I don't know whether that's what the King will choose to do, but we'll see in due course. This is pretty strong rain, and yet you can see on the left, just inside there, you could see the guard formed by the Queen's Gurkha engineers waiting to dismount guard and hand over to the escort to the colour, who are coming down There are the Coldstream Guards with their red plumes on the right-hand side of their bearskin cap, and their buttons on their backs are in pairs. And for the Major General, returning there with his officers, another sense of success. Members of the household inside the railings of Buckingham Palace. It's a great privilege for them to come and watch this, although in this weather, maybe there are better days. And the policemen, you'll notice, have got their white gloves on, as it's a state occasion. And on the left-hand side, you can see the dismounting guard of the soldiers in blue uniforms of the Queen's Gurkha Engineers. And they have been on guard here at Buckingham Palace, at the Tower of London and at Windsor Castle for the last 24 hours. And for them, they'll dismount, return to their barracks, which is over near Woolwich, and then make their way for a weekend. But it's not long now until the Household Division with the King reappear back down the Mall and around the wedding cake, as it's known, the great memorial to Queen Victoria, which was put up in 1913, pretty much the same time that the frontage you see on Buckingham Palace, which is a new front that was attached in stone to the old building, which was designed by Sir Aston Webb. As the lifeguards, with their cuirasses, which is the armour that they wear, front and rear, to breastplate and rear plate. That's the first, and this is the second squadron of the Sovereign's escort. The third, formed by the Blues and Royals, and still waiting at Buckingham Palace for the majority of the troops to appear. And you can tell how the rain sits on the bearskin, and it doesn't actually go in, it just flows down. There've been many discussions about replacing it with synthetic equivalent, but nothing operates quite the same way as the bearskin caps that exist today and have been used by the Household Division since they were taken from the French during the Battle of Waterloo in 1815. The block man is coming forward from the Royal Mews. He's carrying a block which will be placed under the wheel of the Scottish state coach when it comes to a halt for the King. So the two grooms, one with a block, one will take the reins too of the horses of the King's carriage. Household Cavalry Mounted Band will take their position for this stage of the parade. And these horses, who have been walking gently back towards Knightsbridge, now know that there's a bit of a delay here. And horses are not always reliable, but these are so beautifully well trained. And it was good to see that horse back on parade, which had been involved in that drama the other day, and two other horses that were also injured are shortly going to be back with the regiment doing their duties. The King's cipher on the back of the state coats, CR, Charles Rex, and the three numerals, numeral 3 from the Roman tradition. It's quite difficult to see the Princess of Wales through all these cameras and dripping umbrellas. But you can tell the music's getting a bit stronger of the mass bands of the Household Division as they come down, and they'll be leading all the King's Guards and, of course, the King's carriage as well. And they'll bring all of them around the Queen Victoria Memorial and will enable the King to dismount and for the final time review, and in his opportunity to thank them for all they've done, all the training, all the preparation, and the fact that day by day the Guards, whilst carrying out their normal military duties and preparing for war, provide a guard on the King's palaces or wherever he is, and if he has visitors from abroad, provide guards of honour. So the Queen's wearing her brooch today as Colonel of the Grenadier Guards, and they're very shortly to arrive at the front of Buckingham Palace. These great bronze statues that represent industry, agriculture, and all the elements that were seen to be so important in Queen Victoria's life for the growth of Britain and what it was then committed to. And inevitably, in a car that doesn't have air conditioning, and a carriage certainly doesn't, the windows are fogging up a bit just as they get back to the palace, as the King now is just coming to the front of Buckingham Palace. And a salute there from the Garrison Sergeant Major again, who gives all the signals for this parade. And again, we have no control of this particular camera as we look across to the North Centre Gate. And there's the Duke of Edinburgh, the Princess Royal. First year for the Duke of Edinburgh as Colonel of Scots Guards. Princess Royal has been Colonel of the Blues and Royals for some years now, and she also takes turns with the Colonel of the Life Guards, General Sir Edward Smith Osborne, to be gold stick to the King and Princess of Wales with their children. Passing by, and we'll head into Buckingham Palace through the South Centre Gate, probably. So the King in position, taking the salute of all those passing. Meanwhile, behind him, the Prince of Wales just taking position. And the royal colonels all preparing to watch their troops coming back to their barracks and passing by the palace in gratitude as the King takes another salute. So the King is flanked by the Prince of Wales on the left there, wearing the uniform of Colonel of the Welsh Guards. And just in behind the King has come the Duke of Edinburgh and the Princess Royal, as Colonel of the Scots Guards and of the Blues and Royals. And an eye's right there from the Guards as they pass by and will make their way back to Wellington Barracks, where they started the parade earlier today, and there they will prepare to return in buses to where they serve normally. And normal training will return to them all on Monday, as the Major General salutes the King and all the other senior officers of the Household Division who've been playing their part. And the Chief of Staff, Colonel Guy Stone, passing there, who's the brother of our American correspondent, Mark Stone. So for the King, having seen his troops by, he will have another chance to give salutes before he returns into the palace and will shortly then appear at the balcony and see the fly past, if there is one, from the Royal Air Force. But with the weather today, who knows? So this music is being played so that the King can receive the march past or rank past of the Household Cavalry. First, the Life Guards, who formed the 1st and 2nd Squadron of his escort. The guns of the Household of the King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery now moving into the park in order to fire their salute to the King at a few minutes to 1 o'clock today. And watching from the balcony, the Duchess of Edinburgh with her daughter, Lady Louise, the Duke of Kent, who was Colonel of the Scots Guards, the Duke of Gloucester and Admiral Sir Tim Lawrence. And you can hear the subsection commanders shouting out their orders to all the postilion riders who salute with their whips with an eyes left. Prince of Wales looking on. And the white and green plume of the Welsh Guards and the leek at his collar. The white and green comes from the colours of the House of Tudor, from which, of course, the King descends. And there is the commander of the parade. We saw the field officer and brigade waiting. He did a marvellous job, giving all the words of command, Lieutenant Colonel James Colby, watching as the mounted elements of this parade take their leave of the King, as the Princess Royal will now have the chance to see the Life Guards first and then the Blues and Royals rank past the King. And meanwhile, on the Mall, the police are bringing down those who wish to come and watch the balcony appearance. This is tried and tested. It takes time. They're aiming towards Buckingham Palace. It's also a way of bringing a number of the troops who've taken part in the earlier events up at Horse Guards, and a lot of the cadets who wanted to take part to get the chance to get down and watch the balcony appearance. For them, it's quite a day out. And I suppose, like a lot of the cadet camps that they go on, it's rained quite a lot. And the Blues and Royals pass by. Their red plumes and dark blue tunics underneath their cuirasses. And at the back there, the farriers with the famous black plume to mark the farrier who comes forward to deal with a wounded horse. A tradition that we maintain, but of course, horses today are very beautifully looked after by the vets, and that's proved by that wonderful horse returning to duty today. Meanwhile, coming to see the King, the public and their umbrellas. And some of those who were watching the parade at Horse Guards, probably former officers in the Guards regiments, coming down with their top hats on. It's a long walk, but we've seen the soldiers do it. The King taking the last salutes. And now he will return to the carriage where the Queen awaits him and go into the state entrance of Buckingham Palace. As the field officer and brigade waiting hears from the King what the King actually thought of that famous white horse we've witnessed. But he will dismount in the quadrangle with all the other mounted officers here and have a chance to talk to all members of the royal family who've been watching this. Our last sighting of the Scottish state coach as it takes the King and Queen back through the centre arch. And meanwhile, up on the balcony, members of the royal family will have been witnessing that. They bowed as the King went in. The Duchess of Gloucester has joined them, but they will leave the balcony now, probably to avoid the rain more than anything else. And they will come out again when the King and Queen come just before 1 o'clock. But the ceremonial itself is broadly at an end, and it does seem as though everything, apart from the weather, has gone remarkably well. And for those of us who have been witnessing it, it's looked excellent. And those who want to see more making their way down to witness the balcony appearance. It's free to anybody who wants to come along and join in and witness this moment. The police gradually bring those who do down, but the weather is not going to be ideal to encourage that today. Someone's got a chance to put his medal on today and a few photographs. I would imagine a medal from having served in one of the Household Division regiments. Someone forgot to bring his top hat. For the soldiers who've taken part back to barracks and a chance, as I say, to take off those very tight-fitting tunics, the buff belts which they've been doing up with white Meltonian and with doing all the brasses and getting their bearskin sorted out, shaking the bearskin. They've worked so hard for this day, and it's a pity for them that it rained the way it did, but it is to the balcony that I think all eyes will now go for later on today. We've not got long before the King gets back to the state entrance and will make his way up through the corridors from the state entrance, which is at the rear of the quadrangle, here to the front of it. And you can see the light inside the centre room. The centre room spreads to the width of those 3 windows. It has recently been restored. All the electric wiring and everything else has been rearranged, the piping, all organised again, because it was built, this wing, by the architect Balor for Queen Victoria, who had so many children she needed nursery space. She had 9 children overall, and this was intended, this wing at the front of the palace, to be a place for all her children to be brought up. And the various musicians of the bands making their way, those who could be taking part in playing music to support, in a minute, the King's appearance, and of course that changing of the guard that the escort to the colour must now take part in. And notice at the top of Buckingham Palace, you saw the state standard, which we will return to shortly. 36 feet long royal standard that's flown on state occasions. It is lolloping, really, although the wind has got it, but that's 36 feet of bunting with the 3 lions of England repeated in the 1st and 4th quarter, the lion rampant of Scotland, and also the harp of Ireland. But it is an enormous flag and only flies on state occasions like Trooping the Colour, state visits, state opening of Parliament, or from Windsor. It will again for the Garter service in due course. So while the royal family are organising themselves, having a glass of lemon refresher, or whatever they need, just to talk about what they've seen. Remember, what you have is a gathering amongst the royal family of the colonels of the many regiments. They'll be meeting with the 2 colonels who are not members of the royal family, and all of them chatting with the Major General who has delivered this parade, Major General James Bowder, his Chief of Staff, Colonel Guy Stone, the other members of the Headquarters Household Division who have the privilege of gathering. There'll also be representatives of the Royal Air Force, as we see the Corps of Drums of the, my eyesight's not particularly good, I think Grenadiers, heading back into Buckingham Palace, and in order to later on take the St James's Palace detachment of the New Guard back up to St James's Palace after the guard has been changed. And actually long after we will have stopped watching this ceremonial and the King will have gone for lunch. But the ceremonial does go on here at Windsor, and it'll be another 15 or so minutes before members of the royal family appear at the balcony. However, in 2 minutes' time, we will have a gun salute fired by the King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery, whose 13-pounder quick-fire field guns will fire a 41-gun salute. They'll fire 21 guns as a salute to the King, and an extra 20 guns because it is a royal park. And the guns will start firing over the sound of the pouring rain. But for me, watching this, it's been tremendous. But for anybody who's actually there, it has also been spectacular. And Rhiannon, you watched it. How do you think it went for the King and for the Princess of Wales?
Well, Alistair, of course, this is the King's birthday parade, but I think he would have been more than happy to share that stage today with the Princess of Wales. Of course, we were wondering for weeks now whether or not she was going to appear alongside the rest of the family, and then it was yesterday afternoon that Kensington Palace decided to make that announcement that, yes, she would be here for that really important family moment. And I think what's so telling when you look at the pictures that we've seen now plastered all over social media of the princess, she wasn't hiding away when she was in that glass carriage alongside her 3 children. She was looking directly at the photographers, realising that this is a really important moment for her, for us, in terms of giving reassurance about her health. But most importantly, an incredibly important day for her family. As you were talking about earlier, those little children, they were looking everywhere They love this day, they love the ceremonial, they love all of the marching, the pageantry, and which little children wouldn't enjoy spending a bit of time travelling in one of those carriages. So I think for her it was also going to be really important for her to be there alongside them, because of course they don't get involved in many royal events. William and Kate are very sensitive about what they are involved in, so for her to be alongside them was very important indeed. It has to be said, adding to the drama was that torrential rain that started towards the end of the ceremonial event that you were so expertly commentating over at Horse Guards Parade. It was absolutely torrential. We're all drenched. I can't help but think about the members of the royal family who were on horseback, so Prince William, Princess Anne and Prince Edward, and I suspect inside now they're probably drying out a little bit before they head out onto the balcony. And of course we are still waiting to find out whether or not that spectacular fly past is going to take place.
And looking down at Buckingham Palace, a tremendous view. We can see into the quadrangle where very recently the King and Queen alighted from their carriage. There's quite a gathering of members of the royal household there. But meanwhile, the King and Queen and other members of the family will be coming through the building on this side and making their way to the left-hand side, where, of course, the central room is. And you get a chance to look back over towards Wellington Barracks there, and the Queen Victoria Memorial at the centre of the parade ground that we watched all the troops in before. And Rhiannon, you're in the middle of all that rain.
Well, thankfully now it's started to ease a little bit, just as the crowds are being moved down into the front of Buckingham Palace, because of course, this is a big day for all of those people who've wanted to see members of the royal family. It always attracts a really big crowd. But today, of course, there's the added poignance, the added significance after what has been a really difficult 6 months for the royal family. It was a couple of weeks ago that we had confirmation that the King would be able to take part. Of course, it's different from last year. Last year we had that incredible sight, seeing the King travelling on horseback up and down the Mall to Horse Guards Parade. This year, of course, he also is dealing with his own cancer diagnosis. We know that he is still undergoing treatment, and while the doctors have given him the green light, and we know that he is a man who probably would have been desperate to get back to official duties, they are still having to alter a little bit what he can do. So today, having to travel in a coach alongside the Queen instead, but no doubt still enjoying the day as much as he could. It is always amazing to see the crowds moving down in front of Buckingham Palace. This time, of course, the brollies are up, trying to protect them a little bit from the rain. And yeah, we now wait to see members of the royal family on the balcony, which is always a really important moment, as you were reflecting on. It's an important day of the year where all of the calendars, the busy diaries of the royal family actually coincide. They don't often all get to spend time together. And I think that for the Princess of Wales is another reason why today was an important moment for her to be back alongside her family. And while this was always going to be an important moment where the family could publicly come out and show their support for the monarch, I think it's also going to be a very important display for all of them when it comes to their ongoing support for the Princess of Wales, who, we keep being reminded, yes, she's back in front of the cameras today, but this isn't her officially returning to work. As she yesterday in her very moving statement talked about having good days and bad days, the fact she's still undergoing that preventative chemotherapy treatment, and that's going to go on for a few months. But it has been hugely exciting, I think, for the crowds today to see her back with her children after what has been months of huge concern about her health.
It's very difficult to see Buckingham Palace as the rain comes down off our helicopter, but those who are brave, and I think they really are brave, of the crowd that watched the ceremonial, still coming down the Mall in order to get a glimpse of the King and Queen when the balcony appearance takes place quite soon. And in 2 minutes, the gun salute will begin, and it will probably be quite an impressive sound. And it's not far away, just through those trees there will be the guns. And for this crowd, just gradually brought forward, they have to keep them a distance from the gates because they're still open for the remnant of the ceremonial, of the changing of the guard, and for the troops to leave, to go back to their barracks, to other parts of the royal estate where they will be playing their part on guard. See over there, the white building above the trees of Clarence House, where the King and Queen live most of the time at the moment, while Buckingham Palace is being restored, and the West End and up towards North London. But it is a matter of just waiting now for the King and Queen to appear. They'll probably come out pretty much to coincide with the gun salute starting at 12:52. But you always get a little bit of a hint when the pages of the presents start to just fiddle with those lace curtains that just cover down the front to give a little bit of privacy to the royal family inside. So, Rhiannon, the royal family would be pretty well assembled in the centre room at the moment.
Well, we're not sure whether this was perfectly timed, but we currently have some of the bands playing Somewhere Over the Rainbow from Wizard of Oz, which couldn't feel more apt as we're all still standing here with our brollies. I can just about see a little bit of blue sky over Buckingham Palace, where we can also see that splendid state standard flying in the wind there. And there we go, the gun salutes begin.
We're just waiting for the balcony doors to open and for the King and Queen to appear at the end of this ceremonial morning and afternoon here in London. And also we're hearing the gun salute, 41 gun salute, being fired just outside Buckingham Palace. And there are the guns, firing away in salute to the King. The horses and limbers just wait a little distance from the guns there, just to keep them out of danger. But all we can see is the smoke coming up from where the guns are at the moment firing. And at 1 o'clock, there'll be a fly past, we believe, from the Royal Air Force. If they believe that the weather is still all right for it, there will be a fly past in 10 waves of aircraft, which I will do my best to explain to you as they pass. I think that the trouble is, as we aim our cameras into the sky, the rain is such that it may be very quickly difficult to see the aircraft that are coming. But it will be begun with 3 Chinook helicopters, and they will come over at 1 o'clock. But it's now 5.5 minutes to go. So these aircraft, which have come from all over the south of England, will have been marshalling themselves in order to coordinate not only the time they pass over the King and Queen, but also making sure that according to the speeds they can achieve, they are safely at the right distance. And that takes a lot of planning by the Royal Air Force. And in the centre room at the moment with the King will be a senior officer from the Royal Air Force reporting on exactly what the King is going to see. The King is obviously Marshal of the Royal Air Force, as well as Field Marshal of the Army and an Admiral of the Fleet in the Royal Navy, taking as head of state all the senior ranks. But today he is dressed as Colonel-in-Chief of the Irish Guards. It looks like the weather's getting a bit better as one looks above the Mall. See some distant clouds, not that they wouldn't be bringing more rain, but there must be some blue sky between, and maybe that'll be the timing of this fly past. We expect that the King and Queen will come out alone to start with and then invite other members of the royal family. Those in uniform, of course, hold the appointment as colonel of one of the King's Household Division regiments. So the helicopters will be the first wave. 3 Chinook helicopters will be first over. They're on their way, but I think they're a good 4 minutes away. We'll just wait and see them more closely the moment that the King comes to the balcony with the Queen. So we know that the King will be joined, obviously, by the Queen, the Prince and Princess of Wales, their children, the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, Princess Royal, and Admiral Sir Tim Lawrence, the Duke and Duchess of Gloucester, and the Duke of Kent, who recently stood down as Colonel of Scots Guards. The Scots Guards are so grateful to the Duke of Kent. I served in the Scots Guards, and for many years he has maintained huge loyalty to the regiment, and it's a great honour for the Duke of Edinburgh to take over that job from him. There's nothing like the Chinooks for moving troops at speed on the battlefield in order to gain technical and tactical advantage. And on a number of occasions I've had the opportunity to fly in them. You have to run very hard to get in through the entrance because when the downdraft is coming from those propellers, it can be quite challenging. We can see the lights in the centre room of Buckingham Palace. The first time that balcony was used was by Queen Victoria, who came out with Prince Albert and her children to witness troops returning from the Crimea War. The royal family will not be wearing headdress from the balcony because, of course, this is part of the indoors of their house. So we'll get to see people without their bearskins, which makes it very difficult to see people's eyes. In order to put a bearskin on, you put your hands over your eyes and somebody will just brush the fur over the hand, and then you take your hands away, and then it's perfect for the parade. Memories going back to when the King had been crowned and when he appeared here with the Queen in May 2023, then wearing the crowns that they had placed upon their heads in the coronation and the meaning of what they represent. But carrying on a tradition, here he comes, the King and Queen. Prince and Princess of Wales with their children, and then on the left, Duke and Duchess of Gloucester, Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh just to the right of the Queen, and the Duke of Kent off to the right. And here come those Chinooks. quite difficult for the royal family to see the aircraft until they get quite close because the Queen Victoria Memorial takes out quite a lot of their view. It's 1 o'clock. You're watching Sky News and the King's birthday parade as the royal family appear on the balcony to witness the flight past to mark the King's official birthday by the Royal Air Force. And that aircraft is wearing the D-Day markings of black and white around its fuselage, which we remember from the commemorations recently. There's a great roar as the aircraft fly over. So the single C-17 Globemaster, one of the great transport planes of the Royal Air Force, which enable large movement of troops from one operational theatre to another. And you see the effect of the rain on the top of the wings there as the wind flies across those wings flying past. We have a tremendous view from our helicopter way above London as each of these elements of the 10-wave fly past get into position. But all the time, the royal family watching and enjoying it. A Poseidon there with two Phenom T1 and two Texans. We'll also see a Voyager and an Atlas, a Poseidon, two Typhoons. And then right at the end, we'll have, of course, the Royal Air Force's Red Arrows. All the aircraft coming at different speeds, not least coming at the rear, the Red Arrows, and when we see them, it'll make such a fantastic sight as here we have the Poseidon with two Typhoons. It's amazing the view they get of London and the line that they have to draw across the palace and then peel off quite sharply in order to avoid the airspace required for London Heathrow and indeed London Gatwick and London City airports. All three have to be, to a degree, held back during this fly-past period. Let's listen. And it's very sad that because of the accident that took place with one of the memorial flight Spitfires, that we don't have the wonderful roar of the memorial flight today, but all our thoughts with the family and all those involved in that. As more aircraft take their place, three Hawks, the Hawk T2, And you can tell that the speed of these aircraft is increasing, which of course needed to be timed to ensure that the slow aircraft are out of the way. They'll be followed by 4 Lightning, probably in a diamond formation. There go the 3 Hawks. So, chance for the King and the Princess of Wales to talk about what they've seen. And of course, the two of them have kept very much in touch over this period where each of them has been facing the challenges of cancer diagnosis and treatment. And there are the 4 Lightning, the F-35B, or F-35 Bravo. Lovely glimpses of the River Thames there and Battersea Park. And finally, the Red Arrows. And a very happy birthday to King Charles III on his 2nd official birthday. And the Red Arrows turn sharply right to get out of the Heathrow flight path. And for the King, the Queen, the Prince and Princess of Wales, this has been a red, white and blue day marking the King's official birthday, but also with the poignancy to see the King and the Princess of Wales on the balcony at Buckingham Palace as the national anthem is played. And with a wave, the King will take leave of this extraordinarily wet and yet splendid day of royal ceremonial, a day that has marked another year passing in which, for the King and the Princess of Wales, there have been the additional challenges of cancer and their enduring obstacles going forward. But for the Princess of Wales and the Prince of Wales, much to reflect upon. And Rhiannon, for you, an incredible day to witness.
I think, once again, as we've seen year on year, this was a family today coming together for one of those spectacular moments where both the King and the Princess of Wales have talked about the support of the public and how that has been so important for them since they both openly and very honestly discussed their health matters and their own cancer diagnosis. And today, the public were able to come out in their thousands here in front of Buckingham Palace and say a very personal show of support. It is always a spectacular sight to see the hundreds of soldiers, the massed bands parading through the centre of London. And today, despite kind of the very mixed weather, so yeah, now beautiful blue skies as we saw that spectacular fly past. But earlier on, the torrential rain as the royal family made their way back here to Buckingham Palace. You can't imagine what it was like for Prince William, Princess Anne and Prince Edward having to ride through the rain back to Buckingham Palace. But of course, all eyes today really have been on the Princess of Wales after it was only confirmed yesterday that she would take part in Trooping the Colour. And as she said in her statement, she was very much looking forward to being here alongside her family. And yes, for most of us, a family gathering doesn't look anything like this. It doesn't look like the spectacle of trooping the colour. But this every year is a rare moment in the annual calendar when all of the diaries align for members of the royal family. And what they'll be doing now is spending that important family time, as all of us enjoy. Again, sharing their news, catching up after what has been a really important day for the family to show their support.
It was a tremendous moment for the King to come out with his family at a challenging time for all of them, and yet a celebration for the King on this official birthday. It does mark the nation's National Day, and for all of those who were involved in the drama of being out in the rain, it has been fascinating to see how they achieved it. All those guardsmen and the troopers of the Household Division and the gunners of the King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery, a tremendous display of military excellence. And it is what the armed forces are all about, because the Household Division do this parade on behalf of everyone. And the sun really has found its way into the life of London as the State Standard is beautifully lit up there. And meanwhile, at the front of the palace, the changing the guard is carrying on between the Queen's Gurkha engineers and the 9th Company of the Irish Guards who've just trooped their colours. So, you know, with crowds in the gardens around and by Wellington Barracks, which is where so many of those troops went to dismount from their duties, this is the end of a wonderful King's Birthday parade here in London. The King and Queen will make their way later on today down to Windsor.